You're tuned in to Shop Talk, presented by RaceOnTexas.com. Here's your host, Caleb McFarland.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am still your host, Caleb McFarland, and it is so great to be back. Kind of had a few-week hiatus dealing with a few medical issues and things like that, but guess what? Back better than ever, and now here we are with the one and only Carey Akin. Some know the name, some don't, but guess what? If you don't know the name and who he is, you're going to get a chance to know him right now. Carey, it's great to be able to finally kind of sit down with you and kind of let people know a little bit about you and your story in the wonderful sport of dirt track racing.
Okay. Glad to be here. Thanks for asking me. I don't put a lot of my opinions out there, but I'm happy to share my story.
Well, that's a good thing. In the modern age, we have to keep our opinion a little low sometimes.
Yeah.
So I first met Carey when I started announcing back in 2014. He was shooting over at Royal Purple Raceway over in Baytown, and we just kind of became friends. And here we are 6 years later. Well, 7 years later.
Seven.
That's math, man. That's why I talk for
math.
a living. And but yeah, Carey. So you started out very kind of similar to me and with what you do now, but in the announcing world, just kind of thrown to the wolves in a way. But what got you involved in racing as a kid?
Well, I'll go back. Unlike a lot of people in the sport, I didn't grow up around.
Okay.
I really didn't start going to the races. Now, going back, my father, way back when he grew up in the San Jose, California area, his uncle had a gas station down in Morgan Hill, and he used to tell stories about how he crewed on a stock car that was run out of his uncle's garage, ran at San Jose. But we never went, and we moved around California. And then once I got up into the foothills, out between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe, we moved up there about the time I started high school. And there was a dirt track. We started going to the local dirt track up there, which is still around. It's called Placerville Speedway, but back then it was called Hangtown Speedway.
Okay.
And first couple of years, go as a fan, and then it's a very addictive sport. And just by some friends of my parents, they knew one of the promoters, and I got a part-time, basically, helper's job helping the local announcer for a year. And then he worked for local TV, and he went off to bigger and better things. I believe he actually went to go to work for Ted Turner.
Okay, yeah.
And then another guy from Sacramento TV came in, and he and I would work with him. And basically, I would go run interference. I'd go get information from the drivers, and they would work off of information cards whenever a race set out. So I'd set the cards out, and that taught me a lot. And then this guy, he kind of conned me into announcing. Actually, I get behind the mic. I was standing up there, and he had gone down during intermission to get his beer. And the first feature was rolling out of the track, and we used to do driver intros. At least they'd line the cars up at the front straightaway, and the flagman would introduce the drivers.
Okay.
One by one. They wouldn't get out of the car, but then the announcer would read off the name of the car, the sponsors, and so forth. So, it was basically everybody was in on it but me. So cars all came out on the track for the first feature. Flagman goes down there, and he's looking up at the press box, and the scorekeepers are looking at me, and they're looking at the press box, and I go, well, where's Ron? and I don't know, you better pick up the microphone and talk. And I'm like, I don't do this. And so I started going through haltingly, in car number 34, sponsored by Joe's Bail Bonds, and then they go on. I'm halfway through, and I see Ron coming up the stands with his beer and a big old grin on his face. I'm like, that's. So from then on, I shared the show with him. We would split the show, split the features, and split the races, and kind of give some comments. And then when he quit, I actually took over as announcing, and then I ended up having to quit when I went to college. But so I'd only been around racing for a few years at that point, but I was definitely hooked.
And that's kind of the thing about it that I've noticed is, getting to a lot of these episodes is, those that grow up in it, they get to experience a little bit and they're hooked. Those that haven't been around it, but then they get a little taste of it, much like you and myself, and then we're hooked. And I guess that's just an attestament. That's a testament to the draw that the sport has as far as the attraction to the racing and the action and the speed and to some the thrills and spills. But it's a sport that always week after week it keeps you coming back.
Well, yeah, and of course it doesn't affect everybody that same way. But I still remember the first day I walked into Hangtown Speedway. That I still remember that first day as a whatever I was. It was 73. I was 14 years old. I still remember walking in there with my parents, going, "Hey, wow, this is really cool." I'd never seen anything like it, and it was just very addictive.
And so what? You had to stop for college, and then you went and did the Merchant Marine deal for a while, and you have a big passion for photography. So when did you start kind of getting into the photog side of things?
Well, I didn't really combine photography and racing. I mean, I used to take a camera to the track when I go to different events and take some pictures, but certainly just as a fan. And even when I was going to sea, I really couldn't go to see as much racing as I could. I mean, for a while I was living in Lake Charles. I knew Big H Speedway was open here in Houston when I moved there in the 80s, but I just never had the time to go over and even see any racing. And really the only time I eventually lived down in South Florida for a while, and I would go down. There's a paved track down there in the Miami area called Hialeah, and I would go there a couple of times when I could. Mm-hmm. I think I even caught one of the Miami Grand Prix when it was a prototype race.
Okay. Wow.
And caught one of those. But again, I took my little point and shoot camera. I actually had a film single lens then, and I used to do. I mean, I was always been interested in photography. Just go to sea, and I can. If you ever see my Facebook post, I occasionally put ocean going pictures up, and I've got some of those.
Yeah.
But I never really married the two, and then when I came ashore, moved to Houston back in '88. And one of the guys that I worked with where I was working was a big race fan. So we started going to Big H Speedway as fans. And just became regular there. And then eventually I started crewing for a car out your way. Scott Jordan out of Vider, used to race a sprint car.
Okay, yeah.
And through friends, and I actually crewed for Scott on the sprint car. And then when he switched to modifieds, anytime he raced in the Houston area, I'd always go there and throw wrenches at the car with him. But
so you would throw wrenches at the car. What makes that? What makes that different?
That's about my gift for being a mechanic, in spite of being a marine engineer. So, and then it's just as things got on, I ended up buying back in, I guess it was late 06 or 07. I bought a digital single lens camera, and I started bringing the track and playing around with it. And I just kind of kept working at a knack at it. So, and that's it. It's unfortunately, it's just one of those things that sort of took over and became this own monster that's sort of dominates my life now outside of my day job.
And yeah, locally you'll shoot over at Gulf Coast Speedway in Alvin, and then at Big H when they have the asphalt races.
Yeah, well, at some point, I think I've shot at every area track in here since about 2007.
Okay.
So, I mean, and I've been the de facto track photographer at HRP, at Battleground, at 105 when it was Bronco.
Right.
And then, of course, down in Alvin, and I might be leaving out. And then recently is the asphalt track for Gina, who's running the asphalt series there.
Yeah, well, that's true, because it just kind of clicked, that we'd talk about, credentials and things. And I remember you were always coming and shooting the ASCS shows when they would be in Beaumont
yes.
before the track closed down. And, you'll travel, do a lot of open wheel racing stuff, but mainly kind of do a lot of extra non-wing stuff kind of out towards the Midwest area.
Well, growing up in Northern California, and not necessarily the track where I worked, but there was a lot of, sprint cars didn't have wings.
Okay, yeah.
And, the super modified had wings. And if you wanted to run your sprint car with a super modified, you'd put a wing on. So sprint car racing, to me, has always been without wings. Now, back in, I was saying earlier, back in 2000, I started going up for the Indy 500 through some people I got to know through the internet. And then we'd catch a lot of local racing, and 90% of the sprint car racing in Indiana is non-wing, and it was like a step back in time for me. I loved it. So once I started just kind of playing around with the camera, I figured, I'm just going to buy a pit pass and go to some of these tracks and start shooting in the infield till they throw me out.
There you go.
Well, I see it now, and that'll come up with some other stories. And it ended up that, and of course, most of the stuff I shot, of course, a lot of stuff I shoot now is not very good. You just don't see the bad pictures. and I started getting halfway decent at it, and then I had got a couple pictures published through some people I got to know, and it just sort of took off from there. And then, so I actually started shooting in Indiana more than I started shooting down here, and then it was down here, and of course, I was getting a little blowback from some local photographers when I first started walking around with the camera, but now they ended up being some of my best friends. So yeah, it's all worked out. So, it's actually been a lot of fun, but like I say, it's created this whole separate thing of something that I didn't really expect it to be. And certainly I also found out there's no money in it, but that's just sort of like racing in general, right?
Oh man. And that's the joy about it, is that you get to go do something that that you have fun with, that you have a passion for, and you get to make a little money on the side with it.
Yeah, very little.
Well,
on a good year, I cover local expenses. I certainly don't cover my expenses from going up north.
Right. Yeah. Dude, I can imagine. And a lot of that, one could argue, could be within like the digital age. Within all the the access, the instantaneousness that everyone has to to media files in general.
Oh yeah, well that could be a whole thing.
But with that though, I mean, it's really helped your exposure at the same time as far as your social media presence and your way to kind of preview pictures and things like that. That way you're not kind of printing things out just for people to buy them. They'll kind of order them per se.
Well, that's it. And I don't, unlike some other guys, I don't have the overhead where I can go ahead and print a bunch of stuff out and hope people buy it. And then and when I do sell things, there are digital downloads available. And of course, everything's printed. I have an off-premises printing company that does it for me.
Okay.
But I also, I don't know if you've noticed, I've stopped sharing as much as I used to.
True. And I've noticed that. That's true.
But all the pictures are there. They're certainly on the website, and I'd like people to view them. I just hope they just don't steal them and use them for themselves. But I know that happens, and there's really no way to control it and still actually take pictures. So
that's true. Yeah, because
that's just sort of the hazard of the line of work. I know if I was doing this as my day job or as a revenue generator, I would operate it completely differently.
Yeah, and that's the you do have the your Manville Motorsports copyright on the pictures, but at the same time, you can't really necessarily try to, I guess you could say, quote, prosecute somebody for a copyright, kind of infringement, without risking not necessarily the credibility, but risking.
Well, I wouldn't. I'd be out of business. I'd do something else. And the other thing I don't like to do, and there are a lot of guys that put the nasty watermark across the middle of the picture,
right?
And I don't like that because I want to share my pictures.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel that
it's a dual-edged sword. But like I say, if I was doing this with the idea of really making money, I would probably do it differently. I'd do it because I like it, and I like to sort of chronicle what's going on here. And I don't see a lot of other kids coming up behind myself, because right now it's just myself and Ron Skinner that are to me the viable dirt track photographers that are still doing it around.
Yeah, that's true. In our Houston area racing area, you kind of go out towards more central Texas. They've got a couple, and more South Texas. But yeah, I mean, between you and Ron, I mean, y'all got Southeast Texas, Houston area, as well as a little bit into Louisiana, as far as what all y'all cover. I know Ron, he goes to, I think Manny and Leesville,
right.
But that's just a lot of races, but just between two people, and
well, and the thing is, I'll go up to Indiana or out to California, and most tracks there are 5 or 6 other guys, and even on a non-special show. On a special show, I mean, when I go up for Indiana Sprint Week or other things, there may be 20 or 30 photographers.
Oh my gosh!
So,
and you talk. Go ahead.
No, it's a whole different. Racing's a whole different deal in both those places.
Right. Yeah. I mean, once you kind of travel a little bit, you kind of see the, how different regions approach racing and things like that. And you talk about Indiana. I think it's from Terre Haute. It's one of my favorite pictures of yours. Is it's a 3-wide slider in the corner, and or I guess you could call it a double slider, but it's one car is stacked right behind the other, and you can
I've got one of those where there's actually 3 cars, right, and they're all in a line, and that's a tough timing shot to get, but I love it when I get them. Was that the one from Terre Haute? That's Terre Haute, yeah. It's on the big flat tracks. They're the best one to get that. I should be shooting there in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's true. Because coming up is a couple of weeks is the Indy 500, and I know usually you'll make a trip up there for Indy, and
right.
shoot practice and shoot some of the weekend.
Right.
And so
and I cover a lot of the other local stuff and some other things. I know this year I'm working on getting credentials for the All-Stars. They've got a 4-night deal where they're Indiana Invasion, 2 nights at a new track, and then Gas City and Kokomo, 2 tracks I also really like.
Yeah, and that's kind of really the fun is, when you have those speed weeks up there, you're able to catch a lot of racing and get to see a lot of different facilities and kind of how they work and do things.
Absolutely.
Even just, not necessarily, people like from a spectator side or, from a driver standpoint in the pits, but from someone that you're not really affiliated with the driver's side, you're not really affiliated with being a fan, and so you just you're able to see, watch, and absorb, both sides of it.
Yeah, and it's the way I look at it. A lot of guys, and of course I do have a day job.
Right. Yeah.
Time. And there's a lot of people that do these fantasy sports camps, right? So they can pretend they're a baseball player for a couple of weeks during the summer.
Right.
Where at least I'm out there. I'm a viable member of the motorsports media, and it's just more for and that's kind of a sort of the ultimate fantasy camp.
I agree. It gives you a way to be a part of something bigger in the sport.
And I've gotten to know a lot of people. I know quite a few track promoters up there and racers, car owners, drivers, mechanics, and it's just been a good time. And I don't know if you remember the old ESPN used to have the USAC racing on ESPN Thunder from the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah.
And it's interesting for me because a lot of those guys I watch on TV now I'm on a first name basis with.
Right.
So
and
that's kind of cool.
And you kind of, if I remember right, I don't know if you still do, but we're, at one time, kind of helping out, sponsoring a couple drivers, helping out with tires here and there where things could. And,
I don't have enough money to be a big sponsor. I'm an associate sponsor with Robert Ballou, and he's also a good friend. Then there's another local guy up there, although he's originally from California, also JJ Hughes. And I throw him tire money every year. And they're good. They're both really good supporters, good drivers, and it's nice to be involved like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about being involved, kind of helping out. I remember we had talked recently about, I believe it was Dave Darlin, the privateer aspect, being a driving car owner, and while working a still day job during the week, and that's kind of one of those kind of dedication things that that we see here on the local level, but you don't really see too much of it on the I'm going to say on the national and regional side.
Well, and what's interesting about Robert, in 2015 he won the USAC championship.
Yeah,
he beat better funded teams like Tony Stewart's teams and a lot of others. And again, his mechanic wasn't a crew chief. It was a guy who worked at a company that digs trenches for pipelines, and day after work he'd go over to the shop and work on the car. And I remember there were times when I would be riding with him to the race, we'd go pick him up at a parking lot somewhere to go down to the track and drop him off on the way home. And we won. And I would say I helped out for 5 events, 6 events maybe of the total trip. But that was the year he won the championship. When I was up in May, where his mechanic was working and I was riding, basically it was Robert and I getting the car ready and putting it on the hauler and taking off. It was just the 2 of us.
Yeah. Okay. So that was Robert, not Dave. That was Robert, not Dave.
Dave. Yeah, Dave. That's. Yeah. I know Dave Darland. Now he's having a tough time. I don't know if you heard. He just had a stroke, and we're all we're all thinking about him. But that's kind of a sad thing. I just saw something that his wife put up. He certainly won't be in a car anytime soon because, like me, he's on blood thinners and he really should be out there doing physical. Right.
Yeah. It kind of, once you kind of start having to take certain medications, it kind of takes the, the risk factor and, amplify it. As, like you mentioned, blood thinners, like that's
right. But Dave's another guy. He's another guy I used to watch on TV, and we're on a first name basis, and actually consider him not a great friend, but we're certainly friendly and know each other, and it's always good to see each other.
And we're talking about, Robert. Is he just had one heck of a weekend out there at Eldora with he and Sunshine Tyler Courtney, and they ran 2 features. One they went 1-2 one night and then 1-2 the other night, and just kind of really kind of helping show that I guess you say not the competition is alive and well. I mean, we know that, but the rivalry, I guess you could say, between, you're sitting there racing for the lead with the same guy one night and then you're doing it again the next night and just helping, really show off, the excitement of the sport.
Well, and it's for the USAC guys, there's a core of about 8 or 9, maybe 10 drivers that'll make every show. And they may, gripe about each other on Twitter or something else, but most of them, when it comes right down to it, I've seen another one that races up there is Chase Stockin. And I remember watching, he had a rear end come apart during qualifying, tore the car up, flipped high. It rolled back into the pits, and I would say, guys, drivers, crew chiefs, everybody from 4, 5, 6 other teams all pitched in and put that car back together for him and got him out for the heat race, and he made the feature.
Oh my gosh! And
then that's what's the really good part of the sport is these guys are competitors on the track, tooth and nail. But if these guys also need help in the pits, they give it to each other, and that's really kind of fun.
We hear about that a lot. The racing family coming together, and that's just another prime example of helping the guy out so that way you have somebody to race against. Not necessarily helping him to help him because it's the right thing to do, which of course is the right thing to do. But you're helping get another car on the track so you can race with somebody else.
Well, not only that way you prove your worth in that. Let's get this guy out there. Right. This guy's good. I'm going to make sure that I can beat him. I want to make sure that he's got a good enough car where I can really earn the wins. And then there's that. And although Damian doesn't race USAC anymore, I'll mention Damian Gardner. I've got to know him fairly well, and he's the kind of guy that, and he gets a lot of chops for being aggressive and then that, but he'll also say, if I don't win the race, I want you to remember racing.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
And I've never seen a guy. He did a barrel roll right in front of me, and I got the whole sequence out in Paris a couple of years ago. And coming through the pits, and I said, "Hey, Damien, I got that thing." He says, "You did?" He says, "Let me look." He says, "Oh," and most guys don't want to buy their flip pictures. He says, "I want those. Send them to me. Send them to me. I'll pay you."
Heck yeah! And that's that kind of, in a way, I would say, and I'd argue that that's somebody that they're out there having fun. They take the good with the bad, and he has fun. He's got a real passion for it, and I don't know. I actually shared a link over on one of those Facebook groups I'm in where he lost the feature in the last lap because the guy coming up behind him just hammered him in the tail tank on the back straightaway, got him loose and passed him. Yeah, I saw that on Monday. Yeah.
And if you notice the interview afterwards, he was cooled down a little bit, but he can be pretty hot. And I don't want to slam him, but I've seen him win races in a similar fashion. And I won't say he did the exact same thing or is blatant, but I've seen him win races.
Right. I mean,
so
people always make the joke, you'd spend your mom coming out of 4 to win $500, but
well, and then Chase Johnson, he did spin the leader to win the race, sort of Dale Earnhardt style, I guess. But anyway, makes it people are going to talk about it though. Again,
yeah,
it's going to be controversial.
It gets the stir, and we saw that, I believe it was like a week ago or week and a half ago now, maybe, about the whole. I'm sure you remember from him racing down here, Aaron Reitzel, the whole bike thing. I mean,
I'm not going to comment.
I mean, it's it gets people buzzing. People are talking about it. There, dirt track racing is filling up people's news feeds. If it's not good racing action, there's something else out there. But it's just kind of, you got the. You got the good with the bad. I mean,
I'm just going to withhold comment.
It's okay. I plead fifth. It's all right. It's in the Constitution. But outside of racing and stuff, when it's even sometimes in racing season, like what's your you have your passion as far as going to racing and taking photos and stuff, but like when you're not racing, like what's your thing?
What's my thing?
Yeah,
that's a good question. I like to cook.
People
may not know I like to bake bread.
Okay, that's a different one. That's
really,
one that's one we haven't heard on here.
Yeah, but I just kind of chill when I'm not racing, and of course I'm a huge rugby fan.
Okay.
So I'm missing some dates because I am a SaberCat season ticket holder.
That's that rugby team out in Houston, right?
Yes, sir.
Holy cow! Yeah, I've still yet to make a match out there, but their stadium looks freaking awesome.
Beautiful. I think that racetrack owners around here have a lot to learn from other sports like that, because when you see a facility like that, that's just amazing.
Yeah, and it's I think it was I want to say it was you that mentioned it to me, that's out in Houston, that is the only single purpose or single use or single purpose, however you want to say it, rugby pitch in the United States. Like everything else.
Yeah,
is
it was purpose built for rugby. Now
there you go. That's the way to say it. Yeah.
They have played some football on there.
Okay.
And they'll because I know I went out for a sevens tournament last year, and they had 2 sets of goalposts because the football goalposts are a different position from the rugby goalpost.
Correct.
And you can see and of course the field is lined a little bit differently. But I know they played, so I think it was some private high schools that were playing some games there, because the city does have part ownership, or they have a deal with it on the stadium. But yes, I think there's one in Colorado that was built for rugby, but it's not ideal. It's some of the and people that know rugby, the end goal area isn't as deep as it should be. Where the stadium here it's a regulation rugby pitch, and it's as good as anything I've seen in the UK. Of course, outside of the big stadiums, but
right.
As far as for club stadiums, it's a nice thing. It's not very big, and I know that it may grow as if and when the team expands, but it's certainly a nice stadium to have, and it's a fun place to go watch a rugby match.
If I remember right, rugby it's a much wider field, like sideline to sideline. It's
a little bit, yes, it's a little bit. And I forget the dimensions offhand, and it's a little bit longer because it's 100 meters instead of 100 yards.
100 yards,
so,
right.
And it's a little bit wider, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I've watched it on TV a few times, but I haven't really kind of delved into getting to make a match. But it's a crazy game. I remember my university, we had a men's club team and a women's club team.
Right.
And the women's club team was winning more notoriety than the men's team. And I'm like, all right, go on ahead with your bad self. Like, I just, no. I'll still.
Yeah, I started playing. I played all through college.
Okay.
And a little bit after, again, going to sea, it's tough to have any kind of normal life. I really couldn't get involved with in a club full time. So when I was living down in South Florida, of course, during spring break, teams would come down. They'd be eventually. The team wouldn't be able to bring everybody down. I'd get some pickup games, and I'd play that way.
So that's what's wrong with your head. That answers that answers a whole lot.
Well, I had dropped on my head a couple of times at work too.
I feel that. That's God. So, what's your, what would you say like would be your, I guess we could say like your favorite moment thus far, like in racing. I mean, you've gotten to travel the country, to a lot of different areas, different tracks, see different classes of racing.
That's a tough call for me. I mean, I like shooting, and of course, it's a thing of the past now. I like shooting champ cars on the Indy Mile.
Okay.
And unfortunately, they're turning that back into a horse track full time, so they're changing the surface. And they won't run cars out of it yet. And there's something about seeing those champ cars on the mile. It's a real throwback. One thing that kind of sticks in my mind is I told you where I really caught the bug of racing at Hangtown Speedway.
Uh-huh.
And I've been able to go back and shoot at races there. That's 4 times so far. And that's always kind of fun for me. There are still a few guys that they're still alive out there when I was working. And one of the drivers just recently retired. And it's kind of fun hanging out and talking with these guys because, I knew these guys, almost 40. And it's just, those are still around. It's just kind of fun to talk to them and talk about what racing's done, but they're still there at the track. If they're not racing, they're still there helping out a team, or they're there. And that's always kind of cool.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those things that's what keeps racing going, it having that, not that, I guess, you can call it the dedication of the sport, even if you're not racing, you're still going to be there to support the track, support other drivers, other than just be like, you know what, we're not racing this weekend. I ain't going.
Well, and they do they started doing a Legends Night once a year.
Okay.
And it's I don't know if I feel sort of misplaced honor. They ask, hey, you're going to come out for Legends? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't consider myself a legend.
Right.
Second of all, wait a minute, I'm not that old.
Old, it's not a number. It's how you feel. All right.
yeah, exactly.
If that's the case, I might fit into that category as much as I creak sometimes.
No, I act well, but that's good.
Oh man. So what are the odds? You ever see yourself kind of going back and getting in the booth just to kind of have a little fun and reminisce on it?
I've actually, in fact, one of the times back at Placerville, the promoter found out I was coming out there and I did an interview, and I've been in the booth, but just announcing races again. I mean, there's an attraction to it, but, I'd rather, the anti-social me would rather be out there in the infield taking pictures.
I like it. So like, what's the draw to it? Like what makes being in the infield taking pictures just like so enjoyable?
Well, just it's again, I'm constantly learning, and I'm still, like I say, I take a lot of bad pictures. You just what I would tell anybody wanting to do this,
okay,
is because is no money is you're going to take a lot of bad pictures. Don't show them to anybody.
All right.
If you shoot all night and only have 3 pictures, those are the ones you put up.
Correct.
Because you'll see some nights I might have 300 pictures that go up. Other nights I might have 150. Well, that's just the way it goes. I could miss the setup on the camera just like the drivers could miss the setup on the car.
Yeah, and that's just kind of because you'll shoot what, manual, right?
Yeah, I shoot manually.
Oh yeah, I mean just from when
I feel I could get more control over the exposure that way.
I agree. When I've done photography stuff just in the side, like back in college and things, when you're able to take, I mean, of course, what I was shooting was a lot different than moving cars, but you're able to kind of, like you say, you're able to articulate how much light you're able to get in through aperture settings and exposures, and it's
yes.
It all adds up to make a good picture, between that.
Yeah, and like this last weekend is a little bit challenging because just to get everything set, then the clouds move in, and then the clouds pop out like. Grrr.
Yeah, you have to sit there and adjust your, if I remember right, like just your ISO and.
No, I usually when it's just the clouds, I start playing with the aperture until it starts getting darker. I mean, it's sort of like I say, just sort of jacking the weight on a race car. I can equate to that because I've crewed on some cars in the past.
Yeah. Sorry, y'all. We're kind of nerding out for a minute talking about camera settings, but but like, so what would you say is the trick to getting your, because I've seen pictures from you doing practice at Indy 500, catching those catching the Indy cars going in the corner, and like you can damn near read the tire. Like it's like the car is like still. Like,
well, again, it's just practice. It's just keep going. Like I say, for every clear shot you see of a car moving 200 miles an hour at Indy,
yeah,
I've probably thrown away 4.
Okay.
And sometimes then you'll get into a groove. Like this, you'll get into a groove, you'll get a bunch going that are good. But again, you won't see the ones that,
right.
That especially, and then also I'll crank the shutter speed way up too. But still, at that speed, and I'm panning very, very fast as they go around.
That's
but
true.
It's just,
yeah,
it's practice. It's just sort of you get a technique, you get what's comfortable for you.
Yeah, you've got to move with the shot. You have to.
And some guys actually will just sit there and pound the shutter the entire time and hope to get one. And I don't do that way. I tend to just take single shots.
Right. Yeah. And that's, well, okay. Never mind.
That's again. It's whatever somebody's comfortable with. I'm not gonna say anything bad about people who shoot that way. That's their style of shooting. That's not the way I shoot.
I was shooting stills for a little bit, covering high school football a few years back on Friday nights because we're racing Saturday. So I was like, hell, I'll go make extra money on Friday nights. So
you're not gonna ever make extra money with a camera, but go on.
Well, see, I was doing live play-by-play as well. And so that's where the pay came in. The camera pictures were for the news articles.
I got
but
you.
And so like you say, you got to move with it. But when you got a guy sitting there going up for a jump ball, oh no, you just hold that, you just hold that sucker down, and you just hear click, 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 click. And so at some point you'll have maybe one good one of him sitting there snagging the ball out of the air. But
right.
It's a different kind of, it's a different pace. It's a different
speed.
And
like I say, because I don't shoot ball sports. When I'm at the rugby match, if you see any pictures in the rugby match, it's this stuff I've shot with the phone.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I got a little bit of an interest of shooting that kind of thing, but it's just, to me, I want to go sit and watch the game.
Absolutely.
So, and I don't know if I can watch the game and shoot. I can watch some racing and shoot at the same time and get a feel for what's going on. But I don't know if I get that same feel being that close on the pitch, and as opposed to where I am in the seats where I can see the whole field. So, and I just, to be honest with you, I'd rather watch the game than take pictures of it.
Yeah, and that's that's kind of the same thing with me. Like with going to baseball. I'm not gonna sit there and work and try to narrate and announce the whole entire game. Like there'll be times like I'll catch, I'll pull my phone out and start recording like bottom of the ninth if the Astros are trying to pull a walk off, just so I can catch it on camera. But
right.
You're just sitting back and enjoying the sport, because it's your downtime.
Well, that's it. That's exactly right. And it's kind of relaxing. I've spent so many weekends and so many years where every weekend's been at a racetrack. It's kind of nice to do something different.
Man, I agree. Like that was a whole chunk of my last 2 years. 2 years in college. Was nailed down to a racetrack. And don't get me wrong, man, I enjoyed every minute of it. And, doing all that helped me get to where I am now. So I'm very, very thankful for it. But, you have those weekends where you're just kind of like, oh, all right, yeah, let's go do that. Oh, well, I can't. I got a race this weekend, and so you kind of have to, take that balance and enjoy that downtime when you can.
Absolutely.
And, I just went to Illinois a couple weeks back. I went on a road trip, and, it was my first time taking, time off work from running my business. And so it was a weird feeling not working, but, it was still nice to just be able to go out and, not worry about working and just kind of relax.
Yeah, well, the thing is, when I take my break from work, I'm shooting racing. So it's like I say, here when I start heading up there next week, and I know that it's tough to take a break from work these days now with everybody working remotely and things like that and getting on Teams calls. But that's just the way it goes. But it's for me, it's what I like about, say, doing that is That's what I plan for a vacation that actually is sort of relaxing to work on something that's not the same as what I do for my day job.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of like, with, working in the, will be very broad, working in the marine industry. You're not going to spend an off day going on a boat and going fishing. I mean,
nor will I ever take a cruise.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like, it's just kind of, it's.
Well, don't get me wrong. There's still times I spend time offshore. There's still times I spend riding ship, and
right.
I am very comfortable at sea. I like being at sea.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to pay anybody to do it. I expect to be paid.
Correct. And man, that's the kicker with me. I've, cleaning aquariums, for a living and installing tanks. It's just kind of one of those things. Like, I have a aquarium at my house that it gets cleaned. I'll be honest. It gets cleaned when it gets cleaned. Like, after you go clean everybody else's, that's the last thing you want to do is come home and clean your own aquarium.
Well, even when I was crewing on race cars, I would never work on my own.
Right, I feel that. Yeah, I feel that.
I'd just take it to the shop. I ain't doing that. Go down there, and for several years, when Stacy Hoover used to have the late model stock with different drivers, and even then switched to modified. I crewed that team for years. We'd do an engine change. I'm there. The battery's dead on my car. I'll take it to some place that swaps it out for me.
I mean, I feel that. Well, to an extent. My fuel pump went out in my truck last year, and it's kind of one of those things, bad timing. COVID just kind of started getting kind of heavy. Started feeling the effects from it, business-wise, financially. So I was like, hell, I ain't taking this sucker somewhere. So a friend of mine that works at a car dealership, he came over, and we changed it in the driveway, and I'm just kind of like, well, I can say I've done this now in the driveway, as far as changing out, dropping a fuel tank, but, it's kind of one of those, I know what you're saying on that. There's some things that, that I won't mind doing, but at the same time, it's like, no, I'll just pay somebody to go do that. I'm not going to change the radiator in my truck. There's too much stuff I got to take off.
Not only that, even when I was going to sea, I sailed as an engineer. So, right. And a lot of years I was on ocean tugs. Some I was either the only engineer or, I headed up an engine department of 3. So always hands-on, keeping things going, keeping things working. And I'd get home, same thing. Oh, car's broke down. It's going to the shop. I ain't picking up the wrench for that.
Yeah, no, not work smarter, not harder, man. Come on now. That's under warranty. What are you talking about?
Even if it was one under warranty, of course. Well, there's other issues too. I'm not going to talk about what sailors do on their time off. And
oh yeah.
Anyway.
I can imagine. Once again, we'll plead the fifth for the sake of the argument. But man, it's I'm gonna let you get on with your evening. I know you get up pretty early in the day, so we'll kind of wrap things up for you. And it's been great. Kind of getting to get a little bit inside on on how you got to where you are and why you love doing it. It's kind of one of those things where the people that know you and see you at the tracks, they know who you are, but now they'll kind of get to know who you are.
Well, and that's sort of my own fault. It's by what my people think. I'm fairly antisocial, so I'll go in, I'll take my pictures, and I'll leave.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's just me. I just tend to keep to myself unless I know somebody, and I'll come up and talk to them. And just on a to leave. I mean, I wish there were more people interested in it. It's a tough thing. To do it, you've got to spend some time, and it just takes practice and just a dedication.
Yeah.
I'm lucky enough to where I've also been able to make contacts. I've got some pictures coming out in, I don't know if it's going to be this issue or the next issue of Speedway Illustrated. They're doing an article on Gina and the pave track.
Nice.
And I supplied the pictures for that. And then there's some other stuff that I've supplied pictures to. I shoot for about 3 or 4 magazines and have done that in the past.
Heck yeah, man. That's
and in fact I'm going to be shooting for Speedway Illustrated at some of the events when I go up in Indiana.
Okay, yeah.
So I've made good contacts like that, but it just takes work, and I wish there were more that were interested in it. I mean, I saw a guy that was at Gulf Coast this past weekend.
Right. Yeah.
And because I can't be there even with my day job and other things, my interests. I can't be at the track.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every week. I'm happy that the tracks around here are willing to work around my schedule and in some cases go photographer list when I'm not there. And they still let me in the next time I show up, but that's just because that's the way it is, and I can't help it. But I'm able to get, some national exposure for these tracks. But I just think that I wish there was a little more interest for people that would come out and actually be willing to. But it does take an equipment investment. One of the things that has always kept me out of owning or driving a car was the expense.
Right. Same.
But little did I know that by picking up a camera and taking pictures, I've probably got more invested in what I'm wearing on me when I'm shooting a race than half the teams have in a car.
Oh my gosh.
So that stuff doesn't come cheap, and it's time aspects. And I'm out there. I'll shoot the racing for however many hours a night, and that's just gathering data. I'll spend another 6 or 8 hours editing pictures the next day.
Yeah, and that's that's a whole nother thing that goes into it. Now we really haven't talked too much on is editing and things that make a good picture and how you weed out what's good and what's bad. But
and one of the most important things about it to talk to anybody who's interested in doing this, the best thing you can do is don't be afraid of throwing a picture away if it doesn't meet your certain standards. You got to have certain standards of clarity and things like that. And think about what you see. And for me, my guidelines of what I would see in a magazine by some of the great photographers, Jim Cheney out on the West Coast, and the guys up in Indiana, and then Chris Peterson's not as well known, but he's another good one. But there are some legendary people. Gene Crucian is out of Chicago. These are guys that I've gotten to know, which is fun. And of course, Tim Alwyn, one of the younger guys, he's up out of Dallas. But I looked at what these guys shoot and try to emulate that. I don't want to try to say copy it, but certainly try to emulate and find angles that you're of your own. Try to do something where you can look at a picture and say, well, that's mine. Or people would look at your picture and say, well, that's got to be one of Carey's because it looks like this.
Right.
And not because it's all blurry and
yeah, absolutely.
framed. But the big thing is that the most important thing I do when I'm going through pictures is throwing out the ones that don't meet my standards.
Yeah.
And then you get into what you're comfortable with framing. There's a way I like to frame a picture. It's different from some other people. Some of the way people frame a picture, it actually is like nails on a chalkboard to me. But again, that's their style.
Right. Yeah. I feel that.
But you've got to be comfortable with it. And it was probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 years before I really got comfortable with what I was taking. And I'm still learning it. Every time I go out and shoot, I learn something new.
And that's one of the only ways to get better at something is to keep learning. Keep learning the craft and finding things that you like in it and things, ways to, in your case, ways to like articulate and not articulate, excuse me, ways to manipulate, different settings and different, frame rates to be able to get that, just wow of a picture.
Well, yeah, and you can learn that anyway. There's some good YouTube stuff. I think the guy I've never watched on or watched a few. There's like Fro knows, and he's fairly knowledgeable about this stuff. But one of the things I like about the digital age, because I used to shoot film, like I say, when I was going to sea, so is the instant feedback. And I think the learning curve is, if you're a quick study, it would be a quicker study, just because you get instant feedback when you're shooting digitally. Where, I'm old enough to remember where it would take a week to get your photos back, and I remember when they got in the mid 80s.
Yeah. When
they got 1 hour. Yeah. Wow.
A game changer.
Is the future. Good thing I didn't invest in that, huh? But that was amazing. I'd come back from sea and I'd go drop my rolls of film off, and I come back and wow, look at that. This is done in an hour. Fantastic.
Oh my God.
That's wrong. But so you can see, but again, you would shoot, and that's why I really have appreciation for these guys that started out shooting film.
Yeah.
Because they would shoot a night's worth, let alone you had to be more particular about what you shot because you're shooting film. There's only so much film.
Correct. Yeah.
And then you didn't know if it was going to be a good picture until if you developed it yourself, which a lot of these guys did.
Yeah.
Or say a few days later. But these guys, they worked on deadlines, so they had to develop themselves and then get it off. And you didn't know if let's say you didn't have the camera set the right way, and also you develop it, it's all crap. Where I make a lot of adjustments on the fly based on what I see on the back of the camera.
Correct.
I don't.
Yeah.
necessarily look for clarity on the camera.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that I deal with as far as the sharpness of the picture. I deal with on the computer. That's where I throw out the fuzzy one.
Absolutely.
But what I'm looking for when I look at the back, if you ever see me, we call it chimping.
Okay.
I mean, it's an expression like, you know, then you make a monkey sound when you're looking at the back of the camera. And all I'm looking for there is exposure. I'm just making sure my exposure is at least reasonable.
Exactly. You'll look at your brightness levels, what comes out, what doesn't, adjust the settings. I'm with you. I'm picking up what you're stepping in.
But then, you know, and I'm not worried about what's in focus. I make sure the autofocus is on. But I mean, that takes care of itself. And then there have been times where the autofocus wasn't on, and it's like, oh, and those are nights where you only see 3 pictures.
That's right. Yeah, that'll make a big difference, Carey. It'll make a big difference.
Yeah, well, I know. If it was easy, anybody could do it. But
that's
right.
Can. That's right. Just kind of like talking, into microphone and announcing. I mean, they let you do it. They let me do it.
They let me do it. You know, they let some others do it around. They shouldn't even have a microphone in their hand. But I'm not gonna cast aspersions for a change today.
Damn, you're at 3. You're at 3 plead the fifths, man. You're pleading 15. You're just racking them up.
Well, I mean, and I've been to places where there's some really, really good announcers.
Right.
And in fact, one of the things that I did where once, hang on, I dropped something.
Okay.
I should probably do this after the call, but I got to know.
You're good.
When I was announcing, and I knew I had a lot to learn about it. And when I would we had some really good announcers at the different tracks out in that Sacramento area. And I would listen to what they were doing. I mean, one of the things that I was told when I was working at Hangtown was the promoter told me, you know, I need to get every driver and every sponsor's name mentioned at least once during the night.
Yeah,
and that's
absolutely.
All the car sponsors. Because I didn't interview the drivers. And we didn't do that, but so I'm going, well, when can I get this? I mean, I could do it when we did the driver introductions. Correct. But say if we had a curfew we had to deal with, if we were running short, we wouldn't do that. We would just roll the cars out. And I would try to do it at least twice, and I thought, man, how can I do it? And I remember went down to the Stockton 99 Speedway. It was an asphalt. There was a young kid named Ernie Irvin used to race down.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember him. He had somewhat of a NASCAR. And their announcer was a guy named Kenny Taguchi, and he was good. And I'm sitting there watching, and we did qualifying, and we also did qualifying on our track. He was announcing the drivers and the sponsors during qualifying. Hey, yeah, I could do that. And when I started doing that, and that would get me at least once during the night. Now, not everybody would show up for qualifying, but a lot of people did. So I'd at least get that out there.
Correct.
And then anytime during the night, I would try to get other drivers, or if they won, that's Ron Tilford sponsored by Orangeville Garage or something, and the sponsors, I at least get that out there. But I would, but that was one of the things I was told, you need to, and let alone the track sponsors got mentioned a lot.
Right.
But each driver sponsor needs to be mentioned at least once a night.
And see, that's something that we don't really have down here too much, as far as, that opportunity is, we really don't run qualifying, or anything like that.
But I just don't hear that from now. You do it some, but a lot of announcers don't do it, even try to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And that was just something that I was taught, and that was just ingrained in me. And then when I had the other thing that I had an advantage of is the guys that I was announcing with, these guys were actually trained broadcasters.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
And then they were also working for the local TV or local Sacramento TV station, which is a fairly strong market.
Yeah. So and they're getting...
there was a lot of techniques as far as, and just simple grunt work, like like I say, filling out cards, having card files. Of course, everything's digital now and on laptops.
It's wonderful. But back then, I love it.
Back then, I mean, I had 2 or 3, 4 big card files for all the drivers we had, just for our little 3 divisions we ran every night.
Wow.
And then, like I say, whenever we pull up get ready for a feature, I'd pull up the cars in the order, and I'd have their cards up, and then I'd put them back in their little sleeves at the end of the night. But there's a lot of techniques I learned from these guys that were just, they probably taught them in broadcasting school. I don't know. My broadcasting school was here's the microphone.
Yeah, yeah, and yeah. Very similar to mine. I got asked just, hey, do you want to start doing the announcing at the racetrack? And I'm like, Sure. Because the track owner knew what I was going to school for. And,
right.
That was kind of one of those, first night, you're just kind of flying by the seat of your pants.
Mm.
And you're like, all right, let's just, tell people what happens. And,
well, where I had the advantage, at least I was working with guys that were doing it.
Yeah.
So that was a little bit different for me, and it made it a little bit easier. That helped me out. And,
lucky.
I think I did okay. I mean, I never heard anybody complain about it except for that first night. But
yeah. We're going to get you in the booth. We're going to have some fun. You and I, we're going to announce a show together. I don't know when it'll be, Carey, but it's going to happen in 2021.
I'll tell you what. I'll let you have my camera, and I'll take your microphone. We'll see who does better.
Let's do it. That'll be a fun trade. Hey, look, we'll do this. We'll trade during hot laps. We'll trade.
No, feature time.
All right, bet.
Put some pressure on you. Put some pressure on.
That's okay. I mean, if you can do it, I can do it. I mean,
yeah, if I can do it, anybody can. That should be obvious.
I mean, you're the one that said it. I mean, I'm just agreeing with you.
I'm just saying. I'm not going to argue.
Well, hey, we'll have to have a a release agreement though, just in case something happens.
Yeah, sometimes putting a microphone. Actually, I've done pretty well considering that I've kept my language pretty much G-rated so far. Which is unusual for me.
I know you've done well.
Considering my background, it's amazing.
I mean, yeah, a sailor. I see what you did there. I see what you did. Oh my God.
Well, all of us who went to sea, we all have that story about we come home from our first ship and we sit down with the family at the dinner and we ask mom to pass the butter and add an adjective which is not appropriate.
Oh man! Oh, I can hear it now.
We've all done it, and it's kind of a running joke especially among us alumni, Academy alumni. But even anybody who's gone to sea, you're sitting in an environment for months at a time, and you come home, and you just forget where you are.
I hear that. I hear that. But man, it's been enjoyable. It's been fun. We've shared some stories and shared some laughs, and that's one of the things I really enjoy about what this podcast can bring to people is a little bit of entertainment, a little bit of backstory, and a good time. And it's always a good time when we get to chat and catch up, and especially when we get to work together. We get to have that fun moment. Giving you a plug, slight embarrassment. Hey, Carey, I see you in the infield. Talk about you a little bit, but on that note, yeah, if y'all are interested in anything that Carey's done, go to manvillemotorsports.com, or check him out on Facebook. It's pretty cool to kind of get to see some of the stuff that he shoots and some of the stuff when you go back in the archives that he has shot. It's always fun to see. I always enjoy it. On Facebook, you'll do the the picture of the day or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always fun, because you never know what you're going to get. It's a toss up.
And I'd like to encourage people to go there, and I'll thank you for asking me. It's always good to talk to people and get out there. Like I say, because I'm sort of antisocial unless you really know me. I'm not going to say much to you. And that's just the way I am. It's my personality. But you get on the website. I actually have pictures that go way back to the real bad pictures I took back in 07, 08, I think. And but it includes everything. There's stuff from Indiana. There's stuff from California. There's stuff all around here, and stuff from tracks we're not going to see anymore, like HRP, Battleground, probably not.
Beaumont too, from all the ASCS shows.
Beaumont, and then I've got a little bit of Gator. Oh man! On a side note, I was driving. I did some work up in Dallas last month, and I noticed they've actually completely filled Gator in, haven't they?
Really?
Yeah, it's all leveled off, filled in. You can hardly even tell there was ever. I can't even tell there was ever a racetrack there.
Man, I haven't been up that way on 45 in a while. Oh my God.
Yeah, neither have I. But I got a job working up in Dallas. Had incident back in March. I made a couple trips up there, and I've noticed that. So yeah, but lots of stuff on there. There's even some IndyCar stuff. There's and like I tell people, everything's for sale.
That's right. I feel that. That's a mood. That's a mood.
And my prices are very reasonable. And I encourage people to go ahead and see what's there.
Well, cool, man. I appreciate it. It's I appreciate, taking your time to chat with us, and looking forward to working with you in a few weeks down there at Gulf Coast. I think I'll be back down there in June.
Good. It'll be good to see you.
Yeah, man. We'll get to have us some fun, tell some jokes, and, be off the record on a few things.
Turn the microphone off.
That's right. Make sure it's off. No hot mics. But y'all be sure to look him up, to show him some love, and as always, y'all be sure to message us on the Facebook page. Shoot me an email at Caleb@RaceOnTexas.com. Questions, comments, concerns, you name it, we'll get to it. But as wrap things up every time, I'm Caleb McFarland. Thank you and good night.